I think politically I can see what he's trying to do. I mean, I think one of the fallacies in this argument is that somehow if we get something like a deal, a good deal with Brexit, everything's going to be fine in the fiscal garden. I think that's a complete fallacy. Even without Brexit, the UK economy was facing continuing years of cuts under the current government's regime, and if we have Brexit at all, that's still going to be the case. Yes, we've just had a recent improvement in the public finances, which is going to give the Chancellor a little bit of wriggle room today. But I think we shouldn't kid ourselves, and there's a lot of political smoke being blown up at the moment by the Chancellor. Things are still pretty poor for the fiscal outlook.
Peter, that's interesting. So are you suggesting that even if we get the best case scenario, a compromise deal on Brexit in time for the deadline, that it's still too early to declare the end of austerity?
Oh, completely. I mean, that's completely fanciful. Even on the assumption that this improvement in the fiscal finances is going to be baked in for the future, because we don't really understand why it's happened, all that the Chancellor can really do is keep the deficit roughly where it is in structural terms, which really means unless there are tax cuts or continuing cuts in services, which frankly are pretty much impossible given what's happened so far, we're not going to get the ongoing improvement in the public finances that this government promised when it was first elected. So things are better than they might have been, but they're not that great.
And Peter, when you talk about this as someone who used to be in the British government, there's been a lot of speculation about how much pressure everything that's happening with Brexit has put on the mandarins, the folks who go from administration to administration. What's your take on that? I mean, is that just as a result of all of the Brexit hoopla, or is this something that we're going to continue to see become part of the public discourse in the UK?
I think there's two dimensions to your question. I mean, at one level, I think there is genuine political pressure in the sense that anything that the government says or that the civil servants say that isn't in favour of Brexit or says that perhaps things aren't going to be great, there'll be a lot of criticism on those civil servants. So many of the statements that have come out of the Treasury, not just from the Chancellor, but some of the documents that have been published, have been heavily criticised by the Brexiteers. But I think the other point is that just because of the sheer volume of business that Brexit is generating, it's pretty difficult for civil servants to concentrate on anything else. And so, serious structural questions, strategic issues around what should public sector pay be, what should happen to UK infrastructure and so on, are all getting parked or at least being used as a pawn as part of this wider Brexit debate. And that's not conducive to good government. Whether this is all going to dispel after March remains to be seen. I'm pretty sceptical myself.
And in terms of what we're expecting to hear from Philip Hammond later in the day, what's your outlook?
So I think he'll make much of the fact that the public finances have improved slightly. I don't think we'll see any tax increases, which is perhaps what might be needed. So I think it'll be a little bit of a holding operation. So I think there'll be a lot of headline measures around spending more money on health, maybe a few sort of goodies here and there. But I don't think he's in a position to do anything too radical at the moment, simply because of this big Brexit cloud that's sort of hanging over everybody, and we don't know yet whether we're going to get a complete drenching from it or maybe just a light shower.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.